Chapter 21. You, a threat!
Visser 3 laughed. He reached out with one hand to push lightly on Chapman's chest. Chapman fell back, sprawled out on the dirt. His head was just inches from the door of my cage. Tears were streaming down the side of his face. If you harm my daughter, I will fight you. I will fight you forever. Ask your Yerk if he believes me. He knows me better than anyone. Ask in his 226 if I will fight for my daughter. Chapman closed his eyes. The tears stopped. Then his eyes opened again. He picked himself up quickly from the ground and stood before Visser 3. The Yerk slug was in charge again. He was once again a controller. Before he stood, I saw something that frightened me all over again. It was Chapman's watch. The time was now 9:28. I had about 17 minutes before I hit the 2-hour limit.
The host will attempt to disrupt you?
Yes, Visser, and the woman as well. She is not as strong as this one, but she was able to gain control of one hand. Perhaps she has deeper strengths than we knew.
He hesitated before going on. I could still smell the fear on him.
I am of more use with a passive, voluntary host. But I am your tool, Visser. I will do as you command.
Yes, you will certainly do as I command,
Visser 3 said.
But you have brought me the Andalite bandit.
He nodded down at me.
And this will occupy my time for a little while. Leave the girl for now. Now get out. You tempt my patience.
Chapman didn't need a second invitation. He jumped in the car and tore out of there. Melissa was safe. As safe as she would ever be with Chapman as her father. That was something. Not much, but something.
Move out!
Visser 3 yelled. I saw the Hork-Bajir respond instantly to his command. The nearest one snatched me up, and suddenly we were moving fast toward the blade ship. In seconds, it would be all over. I would be aboard the Visser's ship. I would leave Earth. The only thing in my future was pain. Maybe I would die before I betrayed my friends. A depressing kind of thing to hope for.
So, what's happening now?
I jumped and spun around inside my cage. Jake, is that you?
Who else would it be? You know anyone else who would be a talking flea riding on your back?
Jake, you were supposed to get away and be safe.
Yeah, right. Like I was going to abandon you. Listen, I could hear Visser 3's thought speech, but I don't know where we are.
We are about 10 feet away from being loaded into Visser 3's blade ship, and I have about 15 minutes left before I'm trapped in this morph.
15 minutes? Great. If you have 15, I have 10. I had to morph earlier than you, remember?
Jake, get out of here! You can't be trapped as a flea!
The door of the blade ship slid open silently. I could see the dark red light inside. I could see a handful of Taxxons that seemed to be standing over control panels of some sort. Hork-Bajir stood at attention.
I'm not getting out of here,
Jake said.
None of us are.
None of... You mean the rest are fleas too?
No, but they should be around somewhere. Tobias was supposed to follow us and lead the others to wherever we ended up.
They can't do anything.
Oh, really? Well, I bet they'll try.
Just at that moment, I heard a strange sound. My cat brain didn't recognize it, but the human me did. It was an engine. A big engine. Like a big truck. Or maybe a tractor. Or an earth mover. The Hork-Bajir carrying me saw it too. He ran into the blade ship and tossed me down. Then he ran back to the Visser, who waited in the doorway.
I think they've started one of the earth movers,
I told Jake.
Then I guess it's time for me to get into this fight,
Jake said.
I'm going to try a quick double morph. Hope it works. Here goes nothing.
Yee-haw!
All at once, through the open door of the blade ship, I spotted the earth mover. It lumbered at a painfully slow speed, but it lumbered right toward the blade ship.
Get us into the air!
Visser 3 shouted. The nearest Taxxon said something in their slithery snake speech. It sounded like,
Sweet, snap, snap, sweet.
2 minutes to lift off. Too long.
Visser 3 said. His tail whipped forward. I saw a huge gash open in the flesh of the Taxxon. Greenish-yellow goo poured out. The other Taxxons all looked kind of excited. They were waving their little upper arms and snapping their little claws.
You and you.
Visser 3 pointed at two of the Taxxons.
Get us off the ground. The rest of you may feed on this fool.
The wounded Taxxon emitted a wailing, slithery scream. 3 other Taxxons rushed at him. Their circular mouths fastened onto their fellow Taxxons' writhing flesh and began chewing and tearing at him. The sound of the diesel engine grew louder. Visser 3 was rapping out orders. Hork-Bajir ran through the door and back outside. Then I saw something happen in the dark corner of the cabin, over past the horrific Taxxon feeding frenzy. Something was growing. A human being was growing out of nothing.
Jake!
Can't talk. Don't distract me.
Visser 3 was in a rage. You could feel the waves of his anger radiating around the small space.
Destroy that machine,
He ordered. Outside, 2 Hork-Bajir took aim at the 5 tons of slow-moving steel. Jake was still cowering in the corner, but he had begun to change once again. In the darkness, my cat eyes could see the beginning of a pattern of stripes, black and orange. The stripes of a tiger. It was time for me to do my part. I concentrated. I felt the change begin. The cage grew small around me. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The earth mover closed in. The near-dead Taxxon screamed as his fellow Taxxons ate him alive. Suddenly, I saw a brilliant red light. There was a sizzling sound. I saw the earth mover disintegrate. My heart was in my throat. Marco! Cassie! Had they gotten away? I had to concentrate. I had to ignore the Taxxon's screams. I had to stop wondering whether Cassie and Marco had been on that earth mover when it was hit. I had to control my morph. Not too far, Rachel. Not too much. I could not become human. Not totally human. I looked down at my paw. Short, stubby fingers had appeared. I stuck my stubby, half-human fingers through the bars of the cage and found the lock. One of the feeding Taxxons looked away from his meal just long enough.
Yes, sincere.
It waved its creepy front legs in my direction. Visser 3 snapped around and glared at me with ferocious hatred. I opened the door of my cage. Jake leaped through the air, his huge claws outstretched. I flew out of the cage, a clumsy mass of fur and skin, a creature that was half cat and half human. Jake hit Visser 3 in the side.
This time you're mine, you jerk.
Visser 3 fell over, tangled up in tiger. His deadly tail flashed but missed. Jake ripped the Visser's flesh with claws infinitely bigger than mine. It was a great pleasure hearing Visser 3 scream that way. But I had other things to worry about. I couldn't move in my half-morph. I concentrated on regaining my cat form. I had only minutes left before the 2 hours would be up. Jake rolled off Visser 3 just as a handful of Hork-Bajir rushed to the Visser's defense.
Run!
Jake yelled.
Run!
I agreed. We ran. I was back fully in Fluffer's shape. I could do 30 miles an hour, as fast as the fastest human being could run. Unfortunately, Hork-Bajir are faster. Jake was faster still for short distances, fast enough to outrun the Hork-Bajir that were after us, but he wasn't going to leave me behind. Jake turned and came for the closest Hork-Bajir. I saw him flying over my head, a huge beast, orange and black striped. The Hork-Bajir went down hard.
Get out of here, Rachel. You're too small to fight these guys.
But there was still another Hork-Bajir on my tail. Faster than me. Too fast. I dodged left. The Hork-Bajir shot past me. I turned back sharply, my little pads scrabbling in the dirt. The Hork-Bajir grabbed for me, but missed. Something else was moving. Something big. The ground was rumbling. A second earth mover was grinding forward on its tank treads. Marco and Cassie had started another earth mover. I raced toward the nearest half-finished building. I had to get away, and I had to morph back. Time was up. In minutes, I would be trapped. I saw a dark hole. I flew toward it in a single leap. The hole led under a wall. Then it opened into a shallow basement. There was a concrete floor about 2 feet over my head. I was safe. Safe, and with room enough to morph back to human shape. I tried to concentrate. Out beyond my little concrete shelter, I heard growls and alien cries. I heard the rumble of the earth mover. I thought I heard the sizzle of Draken beams. Human, I told myself. Return to human. Only minutes left. Then I felt a shattering noise. Then another. Another. It was like some giant was stomping around. The giant's steps stopped. I was frozen, unable to think, let alone morph. Crash! All around me, pillars of rock-hard, scaled flesh, each as big around as a tree trunk, ripped into the concrete. Grunch! The concrete was lifted off me, torn away like it was paper. I was exposed, trapped, and standing over me, with the shattered concrete floor in its mighty hand, was a beast that seemed to be made of living rock.
You won't get away so easily,
Visser 3 said.